answer without being interrupted.
Yeah,
In Matthew the 5th chapter, the enemy was Israel against Israel. The enemy wasn't Israel against the white man.
Can't find it.
It wasn't that.
Doesn't say that. Where's that in the
No
text?
problem. So all anybody got to do is read Leviticus when it talks about thou shalt not hate thy neighbor. That's talking about a fellow Israelite. When Christ came on the scene, the children of Israel wasn't even together. You had the 12 tribes scattered because they was fighting against each other. You can read Isaiah, the 11th chapter, where it says, Judah shall not vex Ephraim, because the northern kingdom and southern kingdom was at odds. That's why the prodigal son, when the son gets to come back, the son that was there hated it because they envied each other, because they hated each other. So the enemies is us of ourselves. White people spend so much time because we say we hate them. They don't care that blacks kill blacks. They don't care that blacks sell drugs to blacks. They don't care that families are destroyed, and we do. So what we go out and do is stop black on black crime. What we go out and do is bring black families together. That's what we do. And that just doesn't include you guys. So when the brother asks, Tommy, what does it gain by saying that we love each other? He didn't have an answer. And you don't have an answer either. What do we gain by loving white people? What do we gain?
No, notice I never bring up white people because that's not the issue. The issue is your enemies.
That's the documentary, though. You said you want to talk about the documentary. That was the documentary.
Yeah. Here's what you would.
You got to make up your mind, VOCAB. Do you want to talk about the documentary or open topics?
Let me answer your question. Here's what you would gain. You would be obeying Christ, which would be a good thing.
Christ never said love white people.
Here's what you would do. I never brought up white peoples. I just said your enemies. So here's what you would do.
Christ never said love everybody.
I'm going to answer. Okay, I'm going to answer your question, and I'm going to point out an error you made. Here's the answer to your question. You would be obeying Christ, and you would be showing that you actually care about him as your master. But by disobeying him, you show that he's not your master. Now, you just brought up Leviticus where it says, oh, love your neighbor as yourself, and you said it's only talking about fellow Israelites. That's a trick you guys pull. It's like you haven't read the end of the chapter, verses 33 and verse 34 of Leviticus 19. Let me read it to you because this doesn't allow you to redefine Matthew 5 by a misreading of Leviticus 19. Because here's what it says. When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall do him no wrong. Now, hold on, I'm not done. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. It specifically mentions non-Israelites and says you have to also love them as you love yourself. So you don't get to de-neighbor people who actually are your neighbor. That's exactly what the wicked tried to do when Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. They said, well, who's my neighbor? Literally, UPK is out here saying, well, who's my neighbor? He gives the example of the Samaritan who, according to you, would not be an Israelite. They're the ones who display love. So this is error upon error. And it's not because you're not intelligent. You are. It's not because you're not articulate. You are. It's because you've been trained falsely and are holding to the doctrine by someone you claim is second only to Christ. And that's why you fail to display the fruit of the Spirit. That's what I'm saying.
So if I could just respond, when you read Leviticus 19, it says the stranger that dwelleth, I'm sorry, you started at verse 33. If a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, we're not in our land, sir. We was taken over here on cargo slave ships, enslaved in a land that has never been ours. So how can that stranger be in our land when we don't own our land? We can't, that young black boy couldn't even walk in his own neighborhood without being stalked by 3 white men. I was right to use that. I didn't interrupt you.
Let's stay on topic.
This is on topic. I'm using an example of us being a stranger in the land and not being able to walk in our streets without being stalked by your people. So the enemies that he's talking about is the neighbors that he's talking about is Leviticus 19 chapter at the top. Then when you go to Luke 18th chapter, when Christ gives the parable of the woman that cried, wanting justice, and the unjust judge avenge, Christ said, shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day or night unto him, though he bear long? What are they crying vengeance for? Against their enemies. So when you talk about Matthew, the 5th chapter, those enemies are to the children of Israel. Even a Samaritan is an Israelite. I don't know what you talk about with the good Samaritan. I don't know what Israelites you talk to. But in Matthew, the 5th chapter,
I'll explain it.
Well, I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go in a second.
All right.
I actually gave more time than I could, but we can have another dialogue. It was actually pretty decent. But in Luke the 18th chapter, Christ recognized enemies, and then in Matthew the 12th chapter, Christ said, "Who is my mother? Them that do the will of my Father." And just one more thing, when
Those are great
Commander Jenny
verses.
Hanna says,
Hold on, they show it's not
when
about flesh and blood. Those are great verses you just
it's
mentioned.
only wait. First of all, it's always about flesh and blood. You have to be an Israelite in order to
John
get the
1.
promise. But
John
on
1,
this
12 through
Commander Jenny
13.
Hanna, is the second under Christ. For those that make this all magical and mystical, it's not that. It's just as simple as this. In I.O.C.K, the highest ranking member in our school is Commander Jenny Hanna. After that, there is nobody on earth that can come to me and give me an order within the organization. So it's like, let's take TD Jakes for example. TD Jakes couldn't come and tell me what to do. He doesn't outrank Commander Jenny Hanna. He's not in our organization. So after Commander Jenny Hanna, the only place we can go is to Christ. It ain't magical. It's common sense. If you ask Alazar who's above him in his organization, he's going to tell you no one. If you ask Zabak who's above him in his organization, he's going to tell you no one. If you ask Nate who's above him, he's going to tell you no one. If you was in an organization and you was in charge and no one would be above you, that's as simple as that is. I can't help it that y'all look for any and everything to try to hate my glorious organization under Christ, the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. But with that said, that's right. But with that said, Voc, I do got to go. If I have more time, I got to go sign some papers. So I do got to go. But you got my number and message me on Facebook. If you ever want to do something again, just let me know.
I appreciate you stopping by and understand you got to go.
Right.
All right, God bless. Have
all right,
a beautiful
thanks.
day. Guys, I only got about 5 minutes.
I don't bless white people, though, but all right.
I don't know how you know my lineage. How do you know my lineage? You know, just by looking at me, right?